My name is Michael Hopkins, Chief Marketing Officer for VinCue and host of Cue the Next Leader. Today, my guest is Ed Hyde, dealer principal at Legacy Nissan, Legacy Ford, Legacy GMC Chevrolet, and Tincher Williams Chevrolet out of London, Kentucky. Welcome, Ed, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you're also dealer principal at another type of dealership.
I am. It's still cars, but it's just golf cars. So we do club car, golf cars as well. So that's kind of fun that we got into that. But just I wouldn't say out of necessity, but my son's a big golfer, and then the local dealer he decided to retire, and we reached out to him more for service, and it's turned into something a little bit more. It's been fun. So yeah,
Awesome.
all things with four wheels.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
like all good used dealers, as
Yeah.
long as it's got an engine and four wheels, and sometimes it's two wheels,
Yeah,
we'll
that's
figure it
right.
out. All right, so we'll get into that in a little bit. So I want to start at the beginning though. How'd you get started in the car business?
Well, so I started in retail as a kid. My uncle had a grocery store, so that's my first run in with retail and dealing with customers. I used to buy groceries, that sort of thing. And my dad had a transmission shop, so I started in basically. If you're going back that far, when I was 10, 12 years old, I was sweeping floors and cleaning up in the shop, and worked there right up until I went to college. And that was my first foray into automotive. And I would buy and trade cars. I think I bought my first car when I was 14 years old, and traded a few times since then. So
Fair
yeah.
enough. And so dealer principal, obviously, of a couple awesome stores that we work with. How'd you get involved with Legacy?
So that goes back. So after I got out of the Marine Corps and I went back to college, and then I needed to pay off some debt. So I actually went to work at a dealership in Lexington. And that's how I got into automotive. And then about 2.5, 3 years into that deal, I really liked it and decided something I probably want to do. And I had a kid, and I really wanted to get closer to home, my parents. So I moved back to Southeast Kentucky. And that's when I went to work at Tincher Williams. Did that for a little bit and just always wanted to kind of go out on my own. So I opened a used car lot in '97. And then 3 years later, this Nissan store became available, and it worked out. I had a good partner at the time, a great partner at the time, and we did a pretty good job on the used side. And then the Nissan became available, and we jumped in. That's how we got the start. That's how I became dealer principal at Legacy Nissan.
That's awesome. That's a great story, and obviously quite a bit of expansion since then.
A little bit, yeah. We've expanded and contracted once or twice, and then my partner and he was working almost exclusively in another store, and I was in the Nissan store. So we kind of decided to split up the two operations, and that's kind of where I went on my own from there, and he went on his own. We're still great friends. He still does a good business, and that's pretty awesome. You make a lot of good friends in the business, so it's been good.
That's awesome. So, when you think about managing, across multiple stores, are you guys your stores operating fairly independently? Are you keeping an eye on them kind of in an enterprise or corporate level? Like how are you managing the stores?
So we have more of a structure of so we have general sales managers and then the service managers slash directors at each location. I'm the dealer principal, if you will. So we manage from kind of a top down like that, and we kind of try to stay pretty lean. We don't have a lot of in between management, and that's how we do that. We do the business office in the Corbin location where there's Legacy Ford and Legacy Chevrolet. It's on the same campus. It's two separate buildings, but same campus. So we have a centralized accounting office there. But that is the only place that we kind of cross over. Other than my wife is the controller, and so she oversees all the business office operations from her office. So, but more or less independent, I would say. Yeah, we operate them independently.
Yeah, that's great. And when you look across your stores and you're talking to your general sales managers, how are you most managing success or measuring success? Obviously, we're looking at the bottom line, but
Right.
what type of metrics are you guys looking at regularly?
Well, turn rate is a big one, and that's where VinCue can come. It really helps us manage our turn and aging of inventory, make sure all the trades are getting appraised, and we also link into it's called Vintail,
Mhm.
so we scan cars and check, which also flows into VinCue, which is pretty awesome. So we have like a centralized location for managing the used inventory. But we do like everybody else, sales per outlet, sales per head count. We look at gross profit, obviously, look at how many trades how many we're getting, how many we're losing, because that's kind of the lifeblood to, I think, everybody these days. Is sourcing inventory is a real tough thing to do. So we look at that a lot, and and then we also have a recon center that we flow 3 of the lots cars through that. That's about all we can handle. The other, and Tencher Williams is kind of totally independent. That's been pretty new, added to the group about 2.5, 3 years ago now. So that's that organization. They've been in business for 30 years, and that's one of the reasons we opted not to change the name. They had a lot of good history, a lot of good people, and they've got processes in place that really work for them. So they manage that. We typically recon through a central location for the other 3 stores. So I do have a recon, have a recon manager, detail shop manager. We got photo booths in both locations, so it seems to work out pretty well.
That's great. So you talked a little bit about, and what we hear all the time is that the biggest challenge right now is sourcing used inventory, right? The more used inventory, that's what's paying the bills. So, we've been working with a lot of dealers, trying lots of different stuff in terms of diversifying where you're getting those cars from. What does acquisition look like for you guys right now?
We're kind of a hybrid, I would say. We've not had a great deal of success buying off the street, and I know a lot of dealers have. I mean, they have their process dialed in. We're still trying to work that out and figure out the best way to go about it. So trade-ins is our primary, I would say. And then I have a dedicated buyer, and that's what he does constantly, is trying to buy inventory for multiple lots. So it's just tough. It's tough for everybody. It's no different here. So it's been I don't know. I say it's tough one more time, but it's tough.
It's tough out there. Yeah.
Yeah, it sure is. So
yeah. So you've got one buyer, which is great. You got someone dedicated to it. I assume plenty of auction. How is he when he's going out and bidding? I assume that some of the stores do better with certain inventory than others. Is he kind of keeping that in his head, or are you guys looking at it from a holistic perspective and allocating inventory as it comes in?
So he tries to buy for each store individually. Again, Tencher Williams has their own buyer internally. They had the process dialed in. We say if it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of deal. So they're doing a great job there. We had a process already in place when we added that store. So it's been pretty awesome. So my used car buyer looks at every inventory. So we use another tool. I won't get into that. It's not an inventory management tool. It's more of a DMS focused tool that helps him sort. And plus we use VINCUE as well. So he looks at sales history, how we've done with the car in the past, and we look at that, and then he tries to figure out where they're light based on model line, that's where we use VINCUE a lot. Where do we need, certain segments of the market, and then we drill down to brand, and trim level from that point. So all that information is available. So it's just a matter of how he aggregates it together, and then he'll get on and source some through online auction, and then so we also go in lane a little bit. So that's been pretty good as well for us.
Have you guys started looking at all at service to sale? That's kind of seems to be the next horizon in acquisition.
We're actually started that with VINCUE, and we're using your all's application to do that. So I have my BDC managers following up with and getting with the service manager, making sure they know that there's a car in the drive that we want. We've had a limited amount of success with that, but I think it all goes back to process. The tool is certainly capable. I will say that. It's just a matter of, it's such a new I know a lot of dealers have been doing it for a long, long time, and we were kind of spoiled because, especially at the Nissan store, we'll take 60% of our new car deals or deals in general have a trade-in on it. So over half of the deals have trades, and out of those, I would say it's well over 80 or 90% of the 60% are retailable. So we're sourcing a lot of inventory. So we've been real lucky in that regard, and never really, you get lazy when it's not a problem. Take the least path of resistance. I mean, that's kind of what we did. So rather than sourcing a lot of inventory, we've always worked the drive, but we're just more looking at it from taking care of the customer standpoint.
Well, that's great.
So if they're wanting information, we'll try to give it to them. Now we're being a little more proactive. We're delivering a trade appraisal before they get here. We'll text that to them, And then when they get here, we'll actually supply them with a printed off copy of that. And if they, I'm a little leery of getting too much high pressure in the drive. That's just a personal thing. I don't want people dreading to come in for an oil change, but still they need to it's good to let people know where they stand in their trade and the equity position they have.
Yeah, 100%. Where we're trying to work towards right now is forever value, like
Yeah.
being able to create an engagement loop that basically
Yeah.
is just, whether it's monthly or whether it's on regular service or whatever, but always
Yeah.
keeping that number in front of them because we
Yeah.
know it's going up and down. And I don't think
Yeah.
that buyers or customers always know that. So I
Yeah.
think it's always interesting to look at. And there's a lot of compelling messaging that can happen where it's like, hey, for an extra $10 a month, not
Oh yeah.
only you're not paying for the service, we're going to put you in a new car, right? And
Exactly.
and that's a good thing that we want to
Yeah.
make sure that they're there. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that Will Smithy, shout out your performance manager. I'm sure Will has been talking
Yeah.
a little bit about some of the stuff coming up in service to sale, but some of it I don't know you've probably seen yet. Are you coming to Unleashed in
Well,
November?
I think y'all booked up on me. I've been out of the office a lot recently, and then I think that you ran out of seats. So I hear you may have another training session. It's not exactly that, but so I was talking to my used car manager, my buyer, about trying to get out to Kansas City and check that out. Maybe later in the year.
We do have some trainings coming up. Now, you are talking to the right guy. Luckily,
Okay.
you took this podcast. If you still want a seat to Unleashed, I'm
Uh,
holding. This won't probably come out till closer to Unleashed when we're actually sold out. But that
yeah.
was our fake sellout, and then we're holding
Okay.
seats back for the last minute. So if you do want to come, you just got to let me know.
The real sellout. All right.
Yeah, we've
Fair
got
enough.
3 left until the real
I
sellout.
need to grab those dates and we'll see if that works out. I'd love to get out there.
I'll shoot them to you after the call, and I think you'd enjoy it a lot. But this year we've just got so much product coming out in the next 12 months. Most of it hitting before NAD in February, but we're announcing it for the first time at Unleashed on the main stage, and we're really doubling down on the service to sale stuff that I think you'd be pretty excited about. We're pulling in data from Team Velocity, so you're going to always have the equity information and data available in VinCue. And then we're also going to be deploying full trade cycle management. So standing next to service lane, not just the customers that are coming in for service, but any customer you have that is in equity that is at a certain point that you'll be able to message and interact with them, which is very cool. And I think this is going to come out late enough. I can go ahead and say, in addition to that, we'll be launching trade cycle management with conversational AI. So we'll actually have AI going and engaging with these customers. So, you've got thousands and thousands of sold customers in your database. You don't want to put a BDC agent on all of those. That's going to, to ramp that up would be massive. Right. So we're going to try and do the heavy lifting for you ahead of time, which would be really cool.
AI, that sounds amazing. And I appreciated the innovation y'all have. I mean, I brought some weird requests to you in the past and everybody seems to really come through. So that's always been good. So I'm anxious to see that. I can tell you the thing I'm excited about AI is I don't feel personally like it's going to eliminate any jobs. I think it's just going to make everybody's job better, easier. I think people can do a better job. And plus AI is not going to, it will always reach out to people. If you tell it to, it's going to do it. So I think that's a way to start the conversation for sure.
Yeah,
so.
Brian Benstock, I love his saying. He says AI isn't going to replace people, but people using AI is going to replace people not using AI.
Right. That's a valid point. That's good. I'm gonna steal that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. I say it all the time, and I as long as I always give him credit because I know eventually he's going to hear it and he'll come for me if not. But yeah, no, it's a really good one, and it's a good point, right? The whole point of AI, along with any technology, is scale, right? Like when Viato started coming into dealerships 20 years ago, the whole point was scale. How can I put on numbers on cars faster that are more accurate? And this is just the next iteration of that. So we're excited to see where it goes too.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you, since you brought your competitor up, I was a long time Viato, and I started using Viato in probably 2008. When we had the recession, and I'm like, the market was contracting. Obviously, we all felt it. All those of us that were in the business, and I look, because it's always easy to kind of feel sorry for yourself. I'm like, oh, what are we going to do? And then I'm like, well, we were selling 17 million cars or whatever the SAR was at the time, and it contracted to. I'm like, but there's still 9 million people buying cars, and so we need to get in front of those people with the right prices and the right. And that's kind of what got me onto that. In the past, we'd only used inventory management tools were really just a set and forget kind of. at 30 days, lower the price by 1,000, until you get, well, we've had it for 60 days now, just sell it, net it out or whatever, whatever the rule was. And that was it. And you're just like, well, it's just not happening. And you had no visibility into the process. Listen, I'm not beating up on that tool. It's a good tool, but I will tell you this, that I felt like we outgrew it. Their pricing certainly outgrew me. That's just one of the deals. And I didn't see any true innovation on the horizon. I don't even know what they're doing now. So to be fair to them, they might be doing some wonderful things, and a lot of people probably still do use them. However, I used a lot of different tools before I found you guys, probably I'd have to go back and look. I think I've been using VinCue since 18. I mean, you probably would know. I'd have to go back and look. 18, 19, I don't know when it was, but exactly. That was just like, I'm like, well, here we go. I'll try one more pricing tool, see if I can replace Viato, the beast, And that was my plan. And honestly, I'm always optimistic going into those kind of things. But in the past, I never even turned Viato off because I had no true confidence in what I was going to find. When I found you guys, I'm 100% VinCue. It's been a pretty awesome experience. I got to tell you that. And there was a learning curve. There's no doubt about it, because everybody bought into that line of thinking. And it's not that far off the way that I think that we do things with VinCue, except for it gives us a lot more visibility into what our actual market's doing per model, which I think helped our profitability quite a bit. So that I will say that, not to belabor that point, but I will say VinCue gave me the peace of mind to cut the cord, because that was the only thing I had up until meeting you guys. That's all I had. So anyway,
man, that's the soundbite right there. We're gonna go ahead and edit that one.
Keep that one.
That'll be the trailer.
It is very sincere. I will tell you that. So I've been very pleased.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously I'm proud of the tech that we put out there, and proud of our people. And it's been quite a ride, and what we do is hard, right? Like putting all this data together and finding the different gaps and opportunities and all that. It's a difficult thing to do. And what makes you competitive is also kind of a factor of how many people are using it. And I think, when Viato first came out, it was a highly competitive tool because not everyone had it. But over time, you get the entire industry using it, which they've done such a great job going out and selling to the entire industry. It became a standard out there. And it gets hard then to have a competitive advantage. So, I think we've always approached the market of like, how can we give a different lens? How can we give a different swing on the data to show you exactly what opportunities and gaps are out there that other people are missing? So hopefully that's kind of what you're talking about and what we've been able to offer you.
100%. And then in the innovation side of it. So if I had another tool to say manage the recon process, you all found a way to let me have visibility of that. And also with like GPS tracking, these things you don't think about but you have all these standalone platforms, and you got a sales manager or a used car manager trying to use 3 or 4 different tools on top of all the stuff you have to do for the banks and the manufacturers. So it's just really nice to have a centralized log in, and we get most of the visibility, if not all, right inside VinCue. So that's been good for us as well. But yeah, I agree. The race to the bottom, it was fine when I was a pretty early adopter of Viato. I felt like I had a competitive advantage, and then everybody got it, and all of a sudden we're all just trying to beat each other's price. And there's more to it than price. There's what we do with certain cars. There's lots of things that factor in, as you know. I'm
100%.
Probably preaching to the choir on that one. But
you are. Listen, you've got lots of other folks listening, so it's better to hear it from you than me, I think.
Yeah, but that's what we found, and it did. Our profitability increased, and we still, if all you're worried about is aging and being the cheapest, you got that. I mean, you got it. And the support is phenomenal. I sound like an infomercial for you guys, but I guess you asked me to speak here for a reason. But I will say this: I'm a cheerleader. In a way, I can be your biggest critic, and I'm not, luckily I don't have a lot to criticize, but when there's something that I don't think, or something I think could work better, I'm happy to share that with Nikki and Chris, and it seems like they get things moving,
Yeah, 100%. Well, so, as we put out a new soft release almost every month.
Yeah.
And I think we're currently tracking like 62, 64% of every release comes straight from our dealers. So you know, whether it's new features or if they found issues or something that's not working as intended, you know, that's where we put our effort. And, you know, that for us, it's just sort of simple, right? It's
Yeah.
like you're the ones
Make it
we're trying to
work.
make happy, right? So
Yeah.
let's go make you
Well, it's
happy.
true. You know, I'm notorious for bringing a legacy problem to you guys, and instead of it's not a mass market issue. So a lot of times, but you know, ultimately, I think all those everything that I've ever really felt like I needed has been I got it. I have it. So it's been pretty awesome. Been a great
That's awesome.
experience.
So let's dig in a little bit more. So you guys have been on since 20, if it's 2018, man. You were like one of the very first. You would have been like the
I,
first.
you have to look that up. I'm sure I can find it, but it goes
Let's
back there pretty good.
I
Yeah.
think I don't even think our CRM goes back to 2018,
Uh,
so I'd have to really dig a little bit to figure that out. But that's awesome, and then so you've
yeah.
been around for a while and you've seen all the iterations. So, but
Yeah.
if we can go back a little bit, I mean, you talked a little bit about wanting to find a competitive advantage,
Yeah.
kind of wanting to see what else was out there. But what I mean, what was it a specific challenge? Was it a specific opportunity you were looking for when you wanted to get off of Viato?
I was more interested in finding what was more market specific, and I found that some of the data in Viato, while it's massive, there's lots of it. Some of it there's some overlap where it probably doesn't belong. In my experience, and then they may have it. I'm not just beating up on those guys, but you know, it's one thing to be just pricing to be the cheapest, and you can do that many ways and not have an inventory management tool. You know, there's lots of people would. It's not free, but I mean, like gurus and the rest of them, they'll show you where you stack up in price if that's all you're worried about. So we ran into a lot of sometimes maybe, well, not maybe, but there are some dealers that might be dealing exclusively in high mile cars, or they're dealing, which you can kind of filter that out as well in Viato. But what you can't do in Viato or couldn't, I don't know when I was using it, was you can filter out a specific dealer. So if there's a particular used car dealer that deals in exclusive like salvage title vehicles. Well, it's not fair for me to stack my inventory up against that. But in Viato, I was finding myself doing that a lot. So it's driving my price down even lower than it needed to be. So that's one thing I really like about VinCue is that you can just block that dealer from every time you appraise a car. They never show up. And I don't have to make a phone call. I think Viato had the ability, but it took a support call, and you had to give them a list of dealers you wanted to eliminate from your feed. So that was huge. It helped me hold my pricing more in line to market. I didn't want to price necessarily over market, but I didn't want to price myself under market either.
Hmm.
So I think that was a big help. Also, something we found was easier to search across multiple rooftops hours and do internal dealer trades. It's easy to find cars. It's easy to see what their volume is on their car, if they have lead activity, or you know, all that's just helpful to
Has
making a
that bec
good. You got to make a good, solid decision. If you're getting ready to drop a car and lose money or drop it to a very low profit margin deal, you need to kind of know, is that the right decision to make? I mean, so I just like having, so I tell people, I've had a few guys call me wanting to know about what I think about VinCue, and I'll say this. It is not probably easier to use in the beginning because there is so much information, but once you get a handle on all the massive amounts of information that you have available to you and you know how to go through it, it didn't take that long, but still, you have everything you need to make a solid decision on buying a car. And we use it every day. So we use it for trade appraisal. We use it for buying vehicles. I mean, all the above. Anything you think, you know, when you think of what you should be able to do with managing your inventory, it does it and then some. So,
That's great. Yeah. Well, you know, and thank you for taking all those calls for us. We certainly
well,
appreciate
I'm
that.
happy to do it. Yeah.
You know, one of the things we talk a lot about, and you were talking about this a little bit earlier, is making sure that you're finding ways to quantify the value that your dealership brings, quantify the value of each individual car. That's something Danny talks a lot about, right? His highest authentic value.
Right.
And so we've tried to put a lot into our merchandising tools, in the way that we syndicate, in the way that we market, whether it's Boost.
Yeah.
You know, what's been your experience on the inventory management side in terms of, because you know, so this is kind of fun. If you do come to Unleashed, I've got some whiskey for you.
All right.
We did our own whiskey barrel
All
pull the
right.
other day, and
Yeah.
we're bottling it at 104.7% alcohol. because that is the goal. We want all of our dealers selling at 104.7% of
Well,
market.
listen,
How close are you?
that's pretty awesome. I just hope it's Kentucky bourbon.
Well, it's not actually. No,
Okay.
it's certainly not. There's a great distillery here in town,
Okay.
that we've
We
got a
got to keep
connection
it.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's good.
It's
All
pretty good
right.
though. It's pretty, well, you
Yeah.
tell me if it's good, I
All right.
guess.
You got it. Deal. You got to get me in.
Yeah, well, you are in. You just have to let me know.
Okay.
But
All right.
yeah, what are you guys doing on the management side? The AI description builders, photo placeholders, things like that. What have you found useful?
So we are using the description builder, which is it's a big time saver. You get, I would say you're much more consistent than trying to build this stuff out on your own. And then there's certain information you want to put in front of the consumer, so that's good. We use that. We use you all to syndicate, obviously, all of our inventory, and the reporting is just it's just invaluable. And I couldn't go down line by line. I'd have to sit here with VinCue pulled up and show you things that I could tell you things that I use every day. But we do window stickers, which is great because we're working out of one system again. We also have. So what we do is in our process, we have our photo manager actually does a book out in VinCue, and then then that carries forward, and of course the books update. So you need that when you're getting ready to send a deal to the bank, and what a better person in my mind to do a book out is somebody that's crawling in and out of the car. We're not missing options. We're not leaving it. Plus, your VIN explosion has improved tremendously over the years. I don't know if that's been just strictly a VinCue programming issue or if the VIN software is just improved. But I'm telling you, like the trim levels and I'll tell you another one is unbelievable, and I didn't think what it would do for us when you can stack up the cars, and you have to tell me what the name of the product is, but where you get trim level right down to option specific. So when the customer comes in, they're like, well, they're 500 cheaper. They're like, well, they don't have the midnight edition, let's say. Yeah, it's the same car. It's a Rogue, but it's not. So it just stacks them up line by line, and it just makes it real easy for the sales manager to get in front of that information and listen, if somebody's shopping you against a car that's not the same, it's one thing if somebody's just beating you on price. It's a whole different issue if they're beating you on price because they have less content in their vehicle they're selling. So it's nice to have that, and you pull it up, and it's easy to show the customer, and it gives us credibility. It's not our information, So
Yeah,
that's
one of
a
our
great tool.
So yeah, we've started, not started. We have been buying a lot of trim and build specific data from different OEMs as it's become available from aggregators. It's not cheap, but it's a huge differentiator because it does. I mean, you can swing the value of a car thousands of dollars. With
one pack.
knowing, yeah, absolutely. So it's super important, and I think our dealers are certainly aware of that.
And it really proves valuable to us on when it's makes we don't sell. So even if the Nissan store has a Ford, for example, they're taking on trade, or we're trying to retail it. In the past, they'd have to call the inventory manager at the Ford store. Hey, run this van. Tell me what this car's supposed to have on it, or how's it stack up? What am I missing? Why? If we think we might be high on a car, well, are we high in it, or are we just in it just right? So it's a huge time saver on that as well. Plus, it's hard for those guys even. I mean, we know certain models and content, and that's great. Not everybody does, and not everybody's, got a good memory. So it's always nice to have the model and trim information right down to a certain specific package. So
That's great. That's awesome. Glad that it is always good to talk to dealers that are using the tool and using the data the way that we hope you do, because obviously we want it to make a difference. So glad that it is part of your process and part of the thinking there. And obviously, sounds like you've had some good performance managers along the way.
We have. I've got and Chris, Chris, and we've had some great ones over the years, but not had that many. So that's a testament to the company because not a ton of turnover in that area. So I can't say that for every company. I can tell you this: since we've been with you, we might have had 3 performance managers, maybe. I don't know. It's not a lot, and they're still around. Most of the time you can get a hold of your old performance manager because it's like they're still around. They're just doing something different. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We do a lot of internal transfers. Chris is super proud. I think we've lost more folks to retirement than we
Yeah.
have anything else, which is a cool thing, right? Let's
That's a
be
great
awesome.
goal to have. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
that is.
So I appreciate all the awesome things you're saying about VinQ and I mean obviously you're one of our favorite dealers and that's why you're on
Wow.
the podcast and we'll get you unleashed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more just kind of about the industry because obviously you've been in the industry for a long time and you've had a lot of success. Looking at where we are today and kind of where you think the industry is going to go over the next couple 5 years, whether it's tech, whether it's the used market, whether it's what's going to happen with new car manufacturing. What do you think are going to be some of the biggest challenges and opportunities in the next couple of years?
Well, from my perspective, I wouldn't. I'm no expert. Let me just say that I only know what's going on in my own little world. I think obviously with this tax credit ending on EV today, we're not in an EV market. The demand in Kentucky's low and the demand in Southeast Kentucky's lower. So you take a real small market. I think there's definitely a place for EV, and heck, I'm driving an EV right now, so I'm not
What are you
adverse to
driving? What are you driving?
a Hummer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Those are very
So
cool.
but yeah, I'm not adverse to the tech. I like it. I just think there's a place for it, and I think we got to figure out where that's going to settle in. Without tax credits, we'll see what the natural demand is when it comes. We just have to see because everybody. It was always a mystery to me how every auto manufacturer jumped into the EV, knowing there's such a very small market share, and I know there's, I'm sure, an enormous amount of R&D that goes into that. So, but they made the decision as a business decision, and I don't see that market taking off. I think plug-in hybrid tech is going to be, and still even in my market, that's not even a big deal. Hybrid or plug-in hybrid, we're still heavy on combustion engine in this market. But if you're talking about nationally, I think that we'll see a natural demand. We'll figure out what that is, and then I think it's also going to be market to market. And I think the ZEV states obviously are going to have a higher demand, a natural higher demand. Plus, in those states, I'm sure they'll probably have some sort of local tax credit to drive that behavior. I don't know. We'll just have to see where it shakes out. Hoping that these interest rates continue to decline. That should start seeing it. But we've had a great year. I'm good where we are, and I don't know how much success I've had necessarily. But I measure my success on my stress, I guess, more than anything. I'm pretty carefree right now, and I'm a pretty high-strung guy as a rule, so it's not too bad. We got our own set of challenges for sure, but we
That's
try to
great.
address them day to day.
Yeah, I don't, I think that everyone's just curious about what's going to happen with new car, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen with the production levels, what's going to happen. Obviously, the tariffs are still feel like they're up in the air a bit. So,
Well,
and that always
I don't
did.
have any, yeah, and I don't have any insight much into that other than what I'm reading in automotive news and, talking to friends. But, I think if these tariffs settle into something that's manageable, and I feel like that we're heading that way, and we'll just have time will tell. But I think a lot of the indecision on the negotiating from our administration, to the other country, it's way over my head. However, I do, we've not really seen it with what we're dealing with. I mean, Nissan produces a lot of cars in North America and a lot of cars, and then I've got the others are domestic, so I'm experiencing the same thing. So I'm not really seeing it on my end. I've heard some things from friends, but so we'll see what happens. I think it's going to settle in at a sweet spot. We'll find it. Maybe we'll just have to wait and see. I don't foresee there being a huge decline in new car sales, but I'm no economist. I worry about what's happening in Southeast Kentucky. So right now, I feel pretty good about where we are. We'll just keep plugging along. We'll take the next challenge as it comes.
That's
That's all,
great.
that's all I know to do.
That's perfect, right? That's what you're there to do.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about AI and kind of what that might do to some of the work and how it's going to change the dealership operations. So,
Mhm.
kind of with that in mind, thinking about some of the younger guys, or maybe in a sales role right now, maybe in finance, something like that, and kind of looking about how am I going to build a career towards general manager, towards owning my own
Right.
dealership? What kind of advice would you give them? What should they be thinking about right now?
And you just got to work hard. I mean, it sounds cliche, but use the tools that are available to you that have been provided. if you feel like you need to go out and invest in your own tool, that's fine. But I think most dealers I know, and I certainly am investing in a pretty big tech stack. You know, we got a pretty big budget in tech, and we have AI available to them on our website. It's available helping them with internet leads and phones are, I think, I definitely are coming. I've seen some demos on some phone AI. I just think it's going to make their life easier, and if they can apply themselves and just do as well as they want, and then always try to keep educating yourself to the next role, right? You should. My experience has been, if I wanted a promotion, I didn't want the guy ahead of me. I didn't want to push him out. I want to push him up, and that's my thing. So if you could push them into a higher role, make them really look good where they get a better job, and then maybe you can take theirs.
I like that a lot. Don't push them out, push them up.
Yeah.
They'll take you with.
Oh yeah, but
right?
hopefully, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
What other, so we're a huge partner company, right? We
Yeah.
love integrating with other companies. So what in
Yeah.
your tech stack and that tech stack that you're talking about, what are some of the other companies you want to plug and kind of give a shout out to that are you think are doing really well?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm using LoopMe, and I have for a long time. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
Yeah.
they have an API integration into you guys, and you work that out. I don't know if I was the first dealer to ask for it, but that's been a game changer. It's just better to not have to log in. We're also currently using TrueSpot, and we're able to track the location inventory right inside of VinCue, which is good. And then of course all the the CRM data pushing back into VinCue is huge now, because now not just how many necessarily internet leads you have, but now you know how many leads, how many people have been on the lot and looked at that car. So that makes a big difference when you're pricing the car. Again, how much interest is in this car? How much interest has been in this car since the last time I priced it? That's a big deal. Because if it didn't move the needle, maybe we need to get a little bit deeper. But if it's working, you can maybe let it ride out another 3 or 4 days. So
What CRM are you using?
we're using eLead.
E-leads. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's the lead stuff is a really, really big deal. And we're seeing dealers now more and more looking at the more so on the unsold leads, right? So
Yeah.
if you've got a used F-150 on the lot and you've got 8 leads that were pretty strong on it, well, you only
Yeah.
sold one of them, right? What about the
Yeah.
other 7 leads? They're still in market,
And we're using that too in VinCue. And so if somebody submits a lead on a car that we sell, now it kind of pairs them up with a like model as they come in. So we have a process in place for that. The BDC's handling that for us. So they'll reach out to those customers and, hey, the car you were looking at, sorry it sold, but oh, by the way, we have 3 more cars here that kind of fit the bill.
Yeah.
And because a lot of times people, they just see, car's gone, they were looking at, and that's the end of then they move on to maybe another website and they don't circle back to you. So we got to be proactive and try to keep them in the loop. So VinCue's allowed us to do that, and having visibility into all our leads from our third-party lead providers and actually web traffic and that kind of thing. It's a big deal.
Yeah, so the thing that I think is most cool about that, obviously it helps move inventory faster and connects inventory with customers, which is great.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that comes in pretty heavy on the appraisal side too, because if you're appraising a trade and that you've got 4 unsold leads on something similar, I imagine you're probably a little more aggressive. You want to get that on the lot.
100%. Look, I'm so old, I had a legal pad at my used car lot that I'd write down cars people were interested in. I'd use that. That's how I went to the auction. I'm like, well, I got 10 people wanting a Tacoma, so well, I got to get one of those. And I'd go to my legal pad when I get back. That's been the great thing about having a CRM. So now we got a way to track it, and then add to it your inventory tool. Well, I don't know what else you can do better, but that's pretty good stuff. And you're not having to track it, because we all know tracking stuff by hand will only get you so far, because
100%.
sometimes you're having a bad day and you just don't want to break out the legal pad, so
100%.
yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I know you've got a busy day. I've got some stuff to jump to, so I'm not going to keep you on much longer. Before we get off, is there anything else you want to share with the car dealers out there listening to us right now?
man, I'm really not that smart a guy, so I don't have a lot of wisdom to impart on people. They don't already know. I get all my best advice from other dealers outside of my organization. We try to learn from that. I just say we always need to keep trying to innovate and move forward and find a better way, and let's try to, and we all need to be, we don't need to add to the problems that gave maybe dealers a bad name in the past. So I think what we're doing now as a group, I think we're moving in the right direction. Transparency builds trust. And I think that's, VNQ allows us to do that. Other tools allow us to do it. And we just need to keep on that path and keep innovating. That's the main thing.
I don't know, Ed. That sounds pretty wise to me. I mean, that's a huge drumbeat. That's like, right now it's all about transparency and trust and rebuilding that relationship and that reputation with your buyers. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably a huge part of what's making you very successful right now. So congratulations on the success you've had. Thank you for being such an awesome dealer, and looking forward to hopefully seeing you soon.
Yeah, sounds great. I'll be looking for that invite.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
That's going to do it for this episode of Q the Next Leader. Thank you to Ed Hyde over at Legacy out of London, Kentucky, for your insights, your perspective, and your stories. My name is Michael Hopkins, and I've been your host. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, please go give us a follow on Buzzsprout or sign up for our newsletter at vinque.com. If you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to us at vinque.com/podcast. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.